Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and I think 2020 has been a pretty solid year for pop. You've got a lot of women stepping up to the plate and smashing the charts wide open, from Dua Lipa to Ava Max to Doja Cat, and then there's Katy Perry firing up the machine yet again for album 6, Smile. I really wanted Katy to pull back the curtains as an artist after the somewhat embarrassing woke fest that was Witness in 2017. When you're pretending to have your finger on the pulse of everything while still working in a terrible collaboration with Migos, Houston, we have a problem. Floating back down to earth didn't seem to be a problem for the modern pop icon, considering Smile kicked off with a summery anthem Never Really Over in 2019. It's a good song, not game-changing, but it's exactly what pop should be, minus that annoying-ass clock tick in the background, but that is a rant for another day, Zed. She seemed like she was out of the clouds and having fun again, and with that kind of loose, I don't really care what happens one way or the other, I'm just gonna put it out there attitude, I was a little bit surprised to see this album release hit a roadblock after such a long string of singles trickling out last year. I heard a few of those, but most didn't even make the final track list for the standard album anyways, so I guess it doesn't really matter. And yes, if you're new to my channel, I only review the standard edition of albums, so the 12-song version is exactly what I'm covering, and oh boy, I really wish I wasn't. You know when you're waiting in a long line at a store or at the DMV, or better yet, maybe you have to call into customer support for some bullshit and you get put on hold? Smile is the soundtrack to that hellish purgatory that no one, not even Katy's most devoted of fans, deserves. Her last album might have been cringeworthy at times, but God, at least it had some bangers to keep my foot tapping. Now the only tapping I'm doing is tapping out entirely. How ironic. Smile sounds like a fusion of Target commercials and Meghan Trainor energy, I shudder at the thought of even that, trying desperately to smash at #1 on the hot adult contemporary songs chart. It's suffocating to hear Katy turn the majority of the track list into her playground for reciting fake deep motivational cliches. I mean, if this inspires you, then go for gold, that's cool. But I just can't wrap my head around anyone other than soccer moms lapping up this dime a dozen snoozer. Her production crew brought their D game for almost every song outside of the lead single and maybe a few scattered cuts like Tucked. The sound is painfully thin, and you could tell that no one's heart was fully invested in making this record a smash. We tiptoe around the musical playbooks that have been written 1,000 times over before falling in the cracks to be swallowed whole by the monster that is pop fatigue. It happens to the best of them: Madonna, Alanis Morissette, Taylor Swift, fill in the blank, they probably had an off day somewhere. But here's the biggest problem with the artist I'm reviewing. Katy Perry already wasn't an album artist, singles were her strength big time, so when you remove the catchy hooks of yesteryear and plaster the most basic ass song structures and chord progressions you can imagine, I mean, do I even have to say it? The successful hit-filled parade career always comes to a close sometime, and this sure as hell looks like the end of the rainbow for Katy. Congratulations to Katy for having her first child. I do mean that sincerely. That's a huge stepping stone in life, and it's great that she seems genuinely happy. If only her music gave even an ounce of that contagious enthusiasm that felt real, but I am exasperated over here trying to find a reason to keep Smile on life support. The biggest argument in favor of this record is that it's harmless, which is mostly true. It's white-walled misery that's not gonna hurt a fly. At the same time, that's also one of the biggest reasons I hate it way more than I did Witness. I could at least remember the train wreck moments, but I guarantee you're gonna have a hard time recalling these tracks within a few weeks, a month or two tops. This doesn't feel like an artist revealing themselves and opening up, because that's what she's basically said her past 2 albums were, and they totally weren't. If it was, the top-notch Never Worn White would have actually made the cut. I stand by that song's quality, but go figure, she shot herself in the foot yet again by cutting out some of the most interesting puzzle pieces. It's that type of decision-making from her label that really makes me question their sanity. Was their thought process like, okay, let's toss the good songs aside, while the likes of Resilient and Champagne Problems waltz through the doors completely uninvited?
Congratulations. you played yourself.
Okay, so hear me out. This album does feel tied together with a pretty little knot, since so many of them are virtually indistinguishable to anyone who listens to music on a regular basis, but am I the only one that thinks Katy was trying to please a lot of different crowds with this thing? She keeps the cliches about trying hard, staying positive, and being good to yourself flowing like a river throughout, but along the way, I noticed that one song has a trappy beat, one feels like one of her old hits, another fits in among the Owl City or Meghan Trainor vibe. It's just an unshakable feeling that really makes this album hard to listen through. Maybe it's just the general exhaustion I'm feeling along with the rest of the world, but with the current pandemic not even close to winding down and the planet quite literally being on fire, lyrics that channel the spirit animals of lame Pinterest quotes feel so awkwardly clumsy and out of place that it's almost unbearable. Smile could have been turned in by literally anyone, but what makes it embarrassing is that it's the final product of a long-winded cycle from one of the biggest pop divas of the 21st century. Let's grit our teeth and quickly rip off the band-aid around Katy's heart, as she so eloquently put it. Teary Eyes is bad disco that couldn't even get a head bop out of me. Not the End of the World feels like a tone-deaf pop-trap garbage bubble. Harleys In Hawaii wasted a perfectly catchy instrumental that should have been a hit for a different artist. Daisies rides the vocal escalator to unbearable heights before taking a nosedive into Motivation for Karen's oblivion, and Resilient paints by the numbers and pretty much guarantees its placement in some sort of Disney Channel coming-of-age movie trailer. That erupted like a volcano, but I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, Champagne Problems is destined for basic white girl heaven, aka wedding dance floors everywhere. The title track Smile made me want to stick my head in a blender purchased from Target of course, I always give into product placement. And then you've got Only Love, a synth-laden track that feels so identical to so many other generic pop songs I've heard through the years, I honestly don't even know if I could pick it out of a lineup 6 months from now. I've got one other song to eviscerate on my way down to hell, but fair play, there were 2 songs that I actually liked on this thing. Never Really Over was of course one of the 2. It's super catchy, Katy's vocals suit it well, and the racing synth melody feels like a style that she needed to run with instead of this tacky, outdated production wank that wouldn't have sounded great in 2010, but it sure as fuck doesn't pass the bar in 2020. Tucked is the other hidden gem, a groovy bass-fueled song that deserved to be released as a single, but then again, with the way Smile was rolled out, I'm braced for the fact that that's not gonna happen, but prove me wrong, Capital. Katy's in the zone on this breezy jam. I love it. She lets go of trying so hard and daydreams away of this forbidden fruit that she basically keeps tucked away in the back of her head. It's a smart little pop song that packs a disco punch over smooth guitars, hand claps, and buttery synths, and I can't help but wonder where this kind of power was the other half hour of Smile. One last song to confront before I go, and that of course is the swan song, What Makes a Woman. I'll be damned if this isn't one of the most try-hard rejects of 2020 that tries so hard to make you connect to its message, like, please ladies, embrace this as your life motto, even though I got the lyrics from last month's advice column in People magazine. This is verbal diarrhea devoid of any real statement. So no, I'm not only criticizing it for being horribly unoriginal, I'm criticizing this because of how half-assedly she handed it down for us to hear. From the acoustic guitar that attempts to stir the emotional waters, right down to the fake-out verbal cues that borrow from much better songs that actually do feel inspiring, Katy's version just makes us happy that this album is finally over. Smile is bad, and in fact, I think it's Katy Perry's worst album yet. I've been a big fan of so many of her past hits, from Waking Up in Vegas all the way through Chained to the Rhythm, but the already incredibly low bar set by some of her recent output was somehow still too high to clear since this album tripped on track 2 and never stood up right again. You deserve better from pop in 2020, but in a way, I kinda get it. She probably had to rush across the finish line to get this album finished before she got further into her pregnancy. Either way, it's a brutally dull record that I wouldn't recommend to anyone. Light 1.5 out of 5. What did you think of Smile? Did you hear things entirely different from me, or do you agree that Katy's starting to feel washed up at this point? Drop a comment, let's talk about it, and while you're looking down, there's a link for my Witness review right here, or a pop album that I actually loved right here. Thanks to my current $50 Patreon supporters Seth, Brandon, and Dayton, and to everyone that watched this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with more right here on ARTV.